Welcome to Streetlight Angels podcast. This is me, Josh. I'm one of the hosts. I've got the other host with me, Casey. Case, what episode are we on?
Episode 9.
Episode 9. That's what's up. Episode 9. Moving fast. Holy cow. We're going, right?
I know.
This episode, we've got our third person coming in and being a guest with us. His name is Eugene. Eugene, welcome, man. He's a comedian. Let me transfer that over to him. Let him explain himself and what he does. Welcome, Eugene.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, my name is Eugene Bassham. That's Bassham for those who want to say Bass Ham. I always say that my name is kind of like the two things people like in the South: bass fishing and ham. You know what I mean? You may do that on Thanksgiving. You know, it's like we're gonna have a ham and we're going bass fishing.
That's cool, man.
Nothing wrong with that.
Grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I am a professional comic. I used to just travel all over the country. Now I travel all over the world telling jokes, and I tell jokes anywhere from churches, schools, and comedy clubs. So it's very encouraging to be here because you guys have a concept, or I would say not a concept, more of a mission that I grew up with. I grew up where you had to be home before the streetlights came on, and now you can't go out, even if
You're right.
And the new subdivisions don't have streetlights, so some of these places we're gonna have to put some streetlights.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, I never even thought about that.
You know, they got those companies now that have the drones that all they do is provide lighting for like movie sets and things like that.
Yes.
And so we just sign up a couple of hours a day. They just come out with the drones, be like, you know.
With some lights?
Right.
That's it.
Watch drones, follow the kids home.
That's a good idea. Holy cow. That's a great idea.
I need a drone to track my children.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And that hits home with you, right? Because you got kids at home.
Oh yeah, man. Well,
Just a couple, right?
Yeah, I have 3 at home, and then the rest is kind of like a revolving door because I have 10 all together.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
King, okay.
that's what the doctor says every time he sees me. It's like I knew it wasn't a different Bassham. It was like it's like my doctor and I, we have a great relationship. But it's like, you know, at one time he was the only doctor in Nashville with a jerry curl, so it was cool. I was like, I asked the best with was like, yeah, so my doctor's from Memphis.
Right on. So 10 kids. Oh my gosh. And in conjunction with a comic lifestyle, that's got to be hard to keep yourself, I guess, in that state of mind where it's comedy, no?
Oh no, man. Well, see, the thing is, when you have that many different behaviors around you, it gives you comedic gold. Like my oldest daughter, she owns her own house, right? And she was like, Dad, you got enough kids for both of us, so I'm gonna just adopt a house, and your grandbaby now needs new floors. You know what I mean?
That's fantastic.
So
Yeah.
so like, you know, so it's like I was like, that's one way to get me to do work for free. It's
Right. Use the babies to dangle as a carrot in front of you.
Oh yeah,
Kidding on.
and
For your granddaughter.
oh yeah, and the thing is that she's held true. Like she's 31 now and doesn't have any kids, but she takes care of a good house though. Like you can almost eat off her floor. She's so clean. I was like, girl, I thought you was raised in Japan as clean as these floors are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So 10 kids, comic life. What was your past history? Were you always a comedian or?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, I've always been funny, but as far as like, I never thought this would be my job.
Sure.
And then you see so much as a firefighter between, you know, kids getting injured, car wrecks, you know, burning buildings and things like that. You see a lot of tragedies. And my coping mechanism for trauma has always been humor. Like we had, you know, and in a lot of communities, you have a death in the family, y'all sit around, you joke and laugh about when the person was there.
Sure.
Bringing it back together.
Like celebrating the life, essentially.
Yeah, and so and that's what you kind of do when you're dealing with trauma. Is just you
Right.
kind of celebrate the good amongst all of this stuff. And so, you know, I've had some crazy calls, but then I've also had some that were crazy at the time that end up, when you think about it, it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, and so due to HIPAA laws, you can't joke about a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But some stuff is just like, I know this one lady, she thought she had an infection, but she forgot she put a piece of bread under her arm
Oh, mercy.
to
No
keep
way.
the moisture. She wanted to soak it up.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, she got this goopy.
Oh my
If
gosh.
She
dude.
thought she had an infection, and she was so big she couldn't see her armpit. She just knew she had goo under there.
No way.
That just took us into a whole realm of.
And then called medical assistance,
Yeah.
essentially. And then you showed up and said, that's just some
No, we
yeast
didn't know.
or some bread.
we didn't know until
Oh, no way.
until we like asked her to go through her day. What has she eaten? Because we have to do like this whole checklist of things and they're putting 12 leads on her because they're like, well, maybe she's having some type of
Heart issue or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
because she was perspiring a lot.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
and then
Oh.
and so it's like, did you have a sandwich? Because we saw bread. She's like, I put bread.
I had half a sandwich. The other half's under my armpit here.
She's like, she got to put her head down. I was like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I literally had to tell her that I do it too, just because I didn't want her to feel so bad.
So sweet. That's such a kind heart.
That is nice.
So you went from being a firefighter.
Military first, right?
Yeah, I was in the Navy.
You were in the Navy first.
Had a lot of episodes where, because you're not supposed to laugh, and so when you got to drill stuff, and I was a second degree black belt at the time, so it's like I was like alpha male type. So if you in my face, I'm like thinking it's funny because you're not intimidating me, And so it was kind of, I would always get in trouble for busting out laughing and stuff like that. I remember one time the petty officer asked me to move. Well, didn't ask me, directed me to move a mulch pile from over here to 2 feet over.
Lovely.
Like just because it was like, you, and I did not find that funny, at all.
No, not
I would
at
imagine not.
But yeah, I used to get all kind of little chores and stuff. Like I stayed on bath. You'd have thought I was the king of the bathroom. I stayed on bathroom duty. Like I knew those guys. I was like, whose pubic hair is this? Yeah. Like,
So you transitioned from the military and then got into firefighting, and then how long did you do?
well, I actually worked in mental health field for a long time, dealing with kids with autism and Tourette's. So
Oh, wow.
I went
That's
from
cool.
so Nashville at one time had a school that was specifically for social disorders as opposed to behavioral, and so they considered Tourette's, autism,
Sure.
and other spectrums in
Yeah.
that category because they were kind of like falling through the cracks.
Oh,
Because you teach differently, so the classrooms needed to be different.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would develop the behavior plans. And I actually think that you guys are partnering with a company that kind of work with kids with autism and Tourette's.
that's right. The
Like
school down south in
Yeah.
Fort Walton.
Yeah.
Asha, they only have children that have autism on a higher scale.
Yeah. So when she was,
I need to look deeper into that.
Yeah.
oh yeah, because the thing is that like we call them replacement behaviors. Let's say they have an inappropriate behavior
Sure.
that's socially inappropriate.
Sure.
You want to replace it with a socially appropriate behavior.
Absolutely.
And so I used to put the plans together. So if you have
Oh,
an
cool.
education assistant, I would monitor the interaction between the teacher, the student, and the learning plan.
Okay.
And then I would put a plan together that helped to implement the right social behavior and the right behavior you needed for them to stay on task.
And was this for
I love
children
that.
specifically?
Yeah, this was from K to 12.
Okay.
And like the school it had a high school, but only half of the building was being used. That's just how many students we had, because at the time it was like they were pulling them as needed into the building.
Okay.
And now I think they have a whole building.
So you got into comedy, and then but you've worked with kids, you've worked in the fire department, you worked in the military, the versatility is unbelievable.
I was about to say very diverse background.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then now you're, kind of really pivoted everything into comedy, but now you want to do what? Almost bring it back with utilizing comedy into with children and schools and stuff, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, because, I believe I am only successful as I am because it does take a village to raise a child,
We
right?
just talked about that in our last episode.
That's right.
Yes.
It takes a village to
It
raise a
takes a
child.
village.
Absolutely.
And so the success rate of people where I'm from, like graduating from high school or going to college, for me to have done all that, I got like 3 associate degrees. I may have 4. I kind of lose count.
That's awesome.
But every time I wasn't able to find a job that I wanted, then I just go to school and do something I was interested in, just to keep the mind going. But like
That's actually what I did too.
my family and my neighbors and people have like stepped up to be like, oh, I'll help you with the kids, so I'll do this. I had my first business when I was 17. I owned an ice cream truck. They ended up growing into like 5 ice cream trucks. So that's how I paid for my first associate degree in photography, is doing that, right? And crazy thing about the ice cream truck is that I used to do a lot of daycares and senior facilities, like senior daycares, and because everybody loves coming to an ice cream truck. I remember this one lady, she was like, she had to be every bit of 85. And she was like, if I didn't have this diaper on, boy, with them pretty eyes. And I got green eyes and freckles. So people always like compliment me on my eyes, but I've never had somebody tell me if they didn't have a diaper on. Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, yes, ma'am, because I've always respected my elders.
Sure.
Like, yes, ma'am. I'll see you next Wednesday.
Yep.
And then that's when they like you, because they come out with their best blouse on the next week.
Oh my God, there it is.
So you've always you've got this charisma about you that you attract people, you have humor, you're successful, you're traveling all over the world, you're getting into schools. Have does that play a part into mental health with people? How have you seen that something that you've taken, you've been able to have a beautiful career with this? How have you seen that blossom into the mental health side for people?
Okay, so I started working with a company called 1 Degree of Separation. And what they found is that as far as mental health is concerned, either you or someone is struggling with a mental health issue, whether it's anxiety, depression, or suicidal idealization. And it kind of hit me at home because I was a teen parent. And so I had a lot of stress and depression trying to figure out, what am I going to do to take care of this kid? I wasn't even old enough to get a job.
Right.
And so kind of like, I know if I had those stressors and then I knew other people whose parents were either on drugs or working all the time and couldn't help with homework. Like some people just get immense amount of stress not being able to do the work because they don't want their friends or other peers to know that they don't get it yet.
Well, they don't want to fall behind.
Right.
We all want to look like we're holding our own.
Exactly. And so what I liked about 1 Degree is that not only did they deal with adults, they would go into schools and we would talk about how to talk about stress and anxiety and depression. And because a lot
on a comedic level, like in a level to where it's relatable too, right?
Yeah. So what we do is we show them what we do as far as our job.
Sure.
And we laugh and and have a good time. And I'll joke about people used to call me Spider-Man when I was a kid because the only way I could see my girlfriend was to climb in and out of her window.
Yeah. Holy moly.
Gotcha.
So that was one of my nicknames.
Sure.
And so, or I'll be like, everybody's heard of Jackie Chan. Well, I was so good at martial arts in my neighborhood, they called me Blackie Chan. And because the thing is, it was always, if you couldn't beat them up, just make fun of them. They couldn't beat me up because they saw my moves, but they're like, and so, we'll be in the schools and we'll joke. And so we'll give them 3 to 5 minutes of a normal set, clean set, like G.
Sure.
Or, sometime if we do a town hall meeting, we've done town hall meetings, it'll be like PG-13. So it's okay for television. It should be okay for this setting.
Right.
And so we, it's like, you'll have a kid that's like, I tried this with my mom. Like, cause we'll do like 3 days in a row and we'll do let's say we'll do the 5th and 6th graders, the 7th and 8th.
Sure.
And then we'll do all the high school.
Yeah.
And, one of the 6th graders will find us the next day. It was like, I talked to my parents and, we talked, like, that's cool. It's like,
that's awesome.
And one other comics have had other experience where, cause every kid, they may not get what you're saying, but they may get what this other guy.
Sure. Yeah. So you have a bunch of different
perspectives
and avenues to get to that individual child or their individual issue, I should say.
Right. You go from laughing to crying to
that's right.
to laughing and joy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That it's almost like I've gone to churches where the preacher will say, if I can only reach one person, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
because that could be the person that didn't get that laughter and joy and then goes up and shoots up a school.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you could
or goes and
connect,
self-harms.
That's right. Or self-harm. If you could connect to them in a medical health state utilizing comedy without turning it into a jokes, essentially.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder why every school doesn't have its own personal comedian
Right.
to be able to do that. And you're onto
That's
something.
that's his thing. Now, and the way One Degree does it is that they'll bring comics from that area.
Sure.
So it's kind of like
Right.
you understand the culture and you probably build
Gotcha.
your humor around that.
Okay.
Like you don't want a comedian from Crestview going up to Memphis, Tennessee.
But, and vice versa, like the military comedians that I know fit in very well when we do overseas shows.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
That's
they
awesome.
understand the cultural diversity.
Right.
Before you go overseas, they'll tell you, all right, you got to take this class so you can understand the culture. That way you're not offending somebody on accident.
Sure.
But yeah, it kind of brings it home for people when they can laugh with you, relate, and then say, this may not work for you, but this is how I talk about it.
Right.
And so we don't that's I guess the most pivotal thing about it.
Sure.
It's not giving you answers as far as relating to you, other than these are some questions you could answer to the person or for the person.
Gotcha.
To start the conversation, because that's the most difficult part about it, especially boys are supposed to be tough and don't supposed to cry.
Right.
So to hear a man say, man, yeah, I cried, just the thought that I wouldn't be able to get a part-time job, let alone a full-time job at 14. I had a kid on the way. So, I talk about that stuff. And
That's got to be scary.
oh yeah. And so most people know me, from when I used to go from high school to high school talking about teen pregnancy prevention.
Sure.
Right.
And then as I got older, it was like violence prevention. So they now they call them violence interrupters, where you just talk to other teenagers and be like, hey, it's different ways we can resolve issues without fighting or, shootings and things like that.
Wow.
And so it kind of like when I met you and we talked about Angel Force, and, you talked about how give, kids a person to look at, to be like, okay, well, as a mentor in a sense, and give you a little common sense in the sense of how to behave when you're in different settings. And I also was like, man, it would be nice to be able to know your neighborhood is secure again.
Right.
Because it used to be, you always had that retired person that just sit out and they'd keep eye on the kids. They'd mind their own business, but they'd also be keeping eye on the kid. Hey, stay away from the road. Or they'll yell at a car for going down the street too fast.
Slow down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we get into that. It's very convoluted in the sense where we get in that we need to mind our own business mindset, when if we believe our children are our future,
Sure.
our children are our business.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
right.
And so, if it comes to how I'm dressed as an adult, mind your own business. But when it comes to a girl or a boy with his pants halfway to his knees, it's like, I don't see how you could justify not saying, hey, pull those things up, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody wants to see your ass. Yeah.
Right.
It's
So with that, like you've had all this experience, and is there one school locally that you've done that really stood out to you, like an instance that you really felt you connected and that you made that difference, or you knew that you made that difference?
The one thing about I say mental health shows, but they're really like trainings in a sense. And so every one of them have affected me because you could see it in a child's eye.
Oh my gosh.
When you give them a little light, you know what I mean? Especially like when you're in the Pacific Northwest, and some of those communities have the highest suicide rates in the country. And so for them to be able to allocate the money to bring people in to talk to their youth, there's an issue when you want to put money behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I would have done it all for free. Like now I go back now on my own dime because I knew it helped that kid.
That's memorable.
And then they were like, oh, I remember you last time. I was telling my friend. And so they were telling their friend, I only did 3 minutes of jokes. So they had to be telling their friend not only about the 3 minutes of jokes, but my story.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how it could be related to them and how they could, bring that to light for themselves to help them continue to move on, or maybe build a relationship with their family or friends better, or however. Yeah, that's freaking awesome. It really is.
Well, and I know we were talking too about not just the kids and the outreach that has, but you were telling this awesome story before we started recording. And I would love for you, if you're comfortable, to share that again with the listeners, because not only is being able to laugh good for your soul and good for your mental health, but you shed light on something and it just kind of blew me away.
So I got diagnosed with cancer, and this was a year and a half ago. And then it made comedy even more important to me because I had read a story about a doctor who got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and only had 6 months to live. And I had cancer on my vocal cords, right near my thyroid and everything. And so I wasn't supposed to be able to talk, or, I wasn't going to be able to swallow. It was a lot of things I wasn't going to. Only thing I lost was the ability to eat solid foods.
Wow.
Never lost my voice.
Wow.
I could still swallow and things like that. Now, another friend of mine, same time period, he had throat cancer, and they had to put a feeding tube in. Same area, same cancer, but he had to have a tube. So I was like, I was doing my research. I found this doctor who locked himself in a hotel room, and for 2 months, all he did is listen to comedy albums and laughed and ate right. And he thought it was, weird that he didn't have the symptoms of somebody who was terminal, who was dying. Like, certain systems and organs started shutting down. So he went to get checked out, and he was in total remission. They didn't know where his cancer had gone. And it was so inspiring that I was like, I chose the right job, a job that not only gives you healing and joy, that it also gives you a mindset that you can think past your situation. It was like, who thinks that, oh, if I'm going to die laughing. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think too, like you said, just sitting here and listening to you, and I'm hearing you say I chose the right job, I think it could possibly just be your life purpose. Like you found your life purpose where you just went down that path. And
that's right. And you've done so many things already prior to where now you're utilizing this, what you actually like to do. And then you could take your past experiences and get that related into, everybody else, especially having a child so young, you know what I mean? Doing military, doing, rescue and stuff like that with the fire department. And then you take those stories and you take real life stuff and then implement comedy into it. And so many people could say, wow. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Well, it's
my day's
almost
not as bad as I thought it was.
Right. And it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Mind, body, spirit, just
I dig it.
Overall. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the best comics too, when you think about them, they're telling you real stories about their life.
Sure.
And,
Yes.
it's not, some people like punchlines, but punchlines are usually not true. It's just like, it starts here and then they just flip it. And so it's not necessarily, it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Well, from the psychology standpoint too, though, when you can be relatable and somebody really feels like you're building that connection and that bond with them, that gives you so much more than a punchline could ever endeavor on, that you don't forget that person. Just like that child came back to you and said, hey, I was telling somebody about you. You left a mark in somebody's life that they won't forget. And you were a happy moment in their life.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. And then, I have to say, you have really put the medical and mental side priority with the children and induced and created that with comedy, which is always a very serious subject. And it's really hard to let people know that, you can laugh about something because in a medical sense, doesn't the serotonin levels and like all this crazy stuff rises, and it actually helps you beneficially in many ways, right?
Oh, yeah. So it's like when you laugh, your brain gets so much joy, it shuts down. If you've actually ever heard a really good joke, you don't remember the whole joke. You remember parts and pieces.
Yeah.
That's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah, your brain just shuts down. It's too busy enjoying it. It's like, release a little bit of dopamine.
That's true.
And so you have that happy hormone going around, and you literally shed off, stressors and things like that, and a lot of tension. And so a lot of times that's the reason why comics like hanging with other comics before the show is because it's so stressful getting up on stage to have somebody
Sure.
have you laugh and bring you down some.
That's right.
Then you get out there, you can work, and you're like, man, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That's right. Yeah.
And
like public speaking and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
a new audience always
Sure.
gets you. It's like the first time I did a show in front of like 65 and older, I was so intimidated. I'm like, I've never done a show in front of my grandmother, let alone everybody else's grandma.
Right.
And I did the show, and it was awesome. And the thing is that because they had so many experiences, like my grandmother used to say, I've been there and done that.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
it was a whole lot easier. That's why they have so many comedy shows in Vegas, of all places. It's like a little comedy capital when it comes to different clubs. They'll have a buffet and comedy right next to each other. So you
Gotcha.
eat your full and laugh until your stomach hurts.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So what was your favorite part or your funniest scenario story that that you've ever encountered while you're doing this thing?
So the abbreviated version that I could give is when I had my ice cream truck, I had my first ice cream truck. I used to have these huge speakers on my truck, right? Like 15s. And so I would play rap music sometimes. And one time, the first time I came down this neighborhood, all these thugs started running towards my truck because they heard the rap music and they couldn't believe it.
Holy cow.
And this guy was like, man, give me everything. And he was like so energetic that I thought he was trying to rob. And I was like, and I peed a little bit. I was like, it was like, and so I was like, you trying to rob me? He's like, no, I'm gonna buy it for the kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's super cool.
And I knew he was a drug dealer, so I charged him extra. It's like I'm not gonna get arrested for charging him extra. But it's funny. But that was like my scariest and funniest moment because it's like I had to check my pants because I didn't want that little bit of pee to bleed through.
Right.
Last thing you want to be known as is the pissy popsicle wig. Perfect. I'd have got canceled.
That's hilarious.
Never forget this now.
What do you say? The what popsicle? The
Pissy popsicle
pissy
pants.
popsicle pants.
I guess pissy
Dude.
popsicle.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. So, I mean, and that's really good because like that alone with the comedy, your ice cream truck, going up into a neighborhood that clearly was a little aggressive.
Right.
And then for them, for this individual to come up and say they want everything. They want it all, but literally to buy the ice cream and everything that you had for the kids there. That is insane.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you think about it, it used to be even if somebody, let's say certain neighborhoods, people were doing wrong, they still knew to look after the kid. You know what I mean? And that's crazy. I didn't even think about that. But
True.
yeah, it's like, because I knew the reason why I had an ice cream truck is because growing up, I was so poor, I couldn't get anything from an ice cream truck. So that was my dream, is to get something and have a section of my freezer just for kids who only had a handful of pennies.
Sure.
And so that's, I go through those neighborhoods, and for him, so he got a little bit of my respect, but I also charged him extra.
Yeah.
It's an upcharge. So
He had it.
yeah, he had.
That's funny. So you can convert that into an educational piece for children. I would recommend the listeners to allow children to listen to this episode to understand that, comedy is a, scientifically proven medical benefit to people that are struggling, and children at that. And then also too, the fact that you had said it, like we talked before, it takes a village to raise a child, and you were in the middle of that village offering yourself and what you had, your ice cream truck or whatever the case may be. And I think if everybody had that same mindset within the neighborhood, we would allow our children to play outside and feel a lot more comfortable with them being out there until the street lights come on. So honestly, we definitely have to do this again. We appreciate you coming on here, Eugene Bassham. And do you have a website, or do you have...
You can find me on Facebook, Eugene Bassham /comedy, and then on social media it's comedian Eugene. And I have a website, but I keep forgetting it. My wife gets on me all the time about that. But I think it's EugeneBasham.com. .com. I think that's what it is.
Okay, no worries.
I
But
hope.
could they find your website on social? I would think when they find you on social media, it's all they're going to utilize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, you can find all my links on social media and all my upcoming shows because I do them all over the country. I got one February 7th in
Nashville. Right?
Nashville.
Nice.
Then I'm back in Santa Rosa for a show. Then I'm in Indiana
Wow.
for a show, I think the 23rd of February.
Awesome.
That's awesome, Eugene.
And then I'll be at Who's Who.
That's right. Yeah. February 20th.
Yes.
Yeah. Be at the Who's Who here in Crestview. Now, what can we help you with? Are you trying to get into schools to run maybe like what you were doing before, what you were talking about before?
Yes. And the thing is that if they find me on my email, I can direct them to the business office for 1 degree of separation.
Sure.
And they set up all the school events, and we understand like the criteria that schools like to have.
Sure.
When people are performing in front of their students and
Good.
things. And we've done so many school systems that principals and everybody knows exactly, what we do.
That's good stuff. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. I would love to be able to collaborate. Sorry. Let me start over. I'd love to be able to collaborate with you when it comes to Angel Force protection, because I think, in any way you could bring education and comedy together for the eyes of a child all the way from kindergarten to 12, and help in any way whatsoever. So again, Eugene, thank you so much seriously for coming. We're going to do it again, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe many times over to get to where we need to go. And that is, that's that common sense and letting our kids go outside and play until the street lights come on and bringing us back into a family village where we need to be, where you were raised, where I was raised, where Casey was raised in, and let our kids be there. So Casey, where can you find us?
Find us on Facebook, Streetlight Angels. We'd love to hear comments, feedback. Let us know if you'd like to get linked in with Eugene. We'd be more than happy to connect you. And then, of course, our email is streetlightangelspodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. And that was episode 9. We love every single one of you. And of course, be safe.